guys, second part of the Nissan 100K maintenance, couple improvements. I showed you all the bits and pieces last time. We already did the hood struts that are still working surprisingly. We also did the breather for the rear, not rear transmission, the rear differential. One thing I forgot, when you're working on stuff like this, your rear differential, and you put a new breather in it, it would be prudent to check if the differential still has enough fluid in it or oil in it. We didn't do that, but I will do that off camera, I promise. And one of these days I'm also going to take the rear brakes off to inspect the parking brake. I suspect that there might be a slight leakage of the axle seals. If that's the case, then we're going to make another video and showing how to replace just the axle seals, not the bearings necessarily, but the seals. All right, we're going to continue. Today is going to be a big chunk of all the work. I told you that we're going to replace heater hoses, heater lines back here. We're going to put a intake spacer in. We're going to replace the spark plugs since we're at it. And we're going to replace the serpentine belt here in the front also while all this is removed. And I want to install the intake spacer in a way that all the little supports that hold the plastic covers on, and also the supports that hold the upper intake here over on this side, they are all still connected and installed. So I'm going to modify everything to make it more or less stock. After we place the intake spacer in there, all this is going to come up a little bit. So let's get started. I'm just going to drain some coolant out of here. There's a Phillips head little drain plug, and here it comes. It's a mess. Oh, it's already dirty. There are chunks in here, so we're definitely replacing this. So there's a drain plug, and then you open one of the filler caps up here, so it drains a little faster, and then you try to catch it. So this bracket here, this whole thing, I have to bring up somehow, but there is multiple things attached to it. So we can't just raise this entire thing up. How are we going to do that? I mean, we could just put a spacer in it. So roughly the height that the spacer is, the thickness of the spacer is how tall we have to make this bracket here. Let's try to get the camera pointing to drop the bolt. The first one. There it is. Alright, we just gotta remember which one goes where. That's the toughest part. But luckily we have a video. So, it is this all loosey-goosey here with that wiring harness back there. I don't know if this is gonna have enough slack to. We might hold this up here as well. There's another bracket that it's attached to. They always make it so complicated. Let's see if we can get this wiring harness up out of the way more. Alright guys, problem with those videos is always that the camera is far away from what you're actually doing. So you saw me taking all the plastic covers off. I disconnected some connectors. I took the intake tube. Let's zoom out a little bit. Took this big old intake tube off, which is held in place here. And the plastic engine cover that goes over here, that's pushed onto that one and screwed on here. I disconnected a hose here. So one more time, 2 coolant lines down here, one up here. This is vacuum, I believe. And then on the back side here, the upper intake manifold, there is this hose that's held in place with a plastic clip back there that I just pushed out of the way. I also disconnected the big old main wiring harness here from this metal bracket, and I initially started disconnecting it from this plastic bracket here. Let me give you a better angle. So this here, this little bracket has 2 bolts holding it onto the upper intake manifold. I was trying to take the wiring harness just loose, but down here is one clip that I don't want to break, but I can't really get to. And there's also another wiring connector back here that I just left in place. I just took the screws out, and that should already pretty much be it. So now we have to take, I don't know if you guys can see, here's my finger, right there's a bolt going into the upper intake manifold. Here's one that needs to come out, and then we have a bunch of smaller ones there and there and there, and some of those are actually studs. The studs will have to come out later and be replaced with the longer bolts that Z1 Motorsports gave us. They have longer bolts in that kit, and that's where the spacer is gonna go. And then, as I mentioned, we will have to, sorry, the lighting is terrible. We will have to do a few things. Put some spacers on those 4 points, space this up a little bit, and then also that bracket here where those 2 bolts go through, that needs to get longer somehow. We'll come up with something. So now I'm just going to take the upper manifold off and then put a rag over it so we're not introducing any debris into the intake. I think I'm going to put a rubber glove over here and on my airbox and give it an air bath real quick. vacuum canister, I would say, is in the way of some of the bolts. And this bracket here that I was reluctant to take off is also covering up one. And then there are a few here in between, which should be pretty easy to get to. Slowly start taking them out. Nut. accidentally dropping something down the intake. One more hose. Here's the ceiling surface. Of course, I have new gaskets for it. We'll clean this up very well. So, and since we're going to be doing other things before I put the spacer in there, I will clean this up. It's actually quite nasty, I gotta say. Clean this up and put some masking tape over it so that nothing can fall in there. But let's clean it first a little bit. Not clean up 100,000 miles. Gotta say. Keep the line and get it cleaned up as good as you can. Sure, don't poke through it. And now I'm gonna get the spacer. The spacer. It's a spacer. Right, that's gonna go like
that.
I wonder if I can get longer studs instead of using, because this is kind of nice to have two studs to line it up with. If I now just use long screws, like the ones that came in the package here, you don't really have something to line it up with. So I don't know. I need two 10mm nuts. Alright, and now we're going to take off all the coolant lines, all that stuff back here. That's going to be a lot of fun, I think. Yeah, that's the old one with a plastic fitting here. Plastic is not very good. I don't know why it never want to focus on. Yeah, so those plastic fittings, they are known to crack and then eventually leak. The new one we have is all aluminum. And if aluminum is better or not, we will see. Huh? An ant bit you? Oh no. No? Did you bite it back? So here is the Z1 Motorsports version. See here? The plastic and the billet aluminum. This one has a breather or like a bleeder screw up top that you can open up to get the air bubbles out of the heater core inlet, and it comes with a silicone coolant line, and the hose clamps they give you, the spring-loaded ones, are kind of the same. As you can see, they're kind of in a pre-sprung position. You just have to push this down and it unhooks and then clamps down. Unfortunately, they don't sell it as a kit. You have to pay extra to get those hose clamps. I don't know. They should just only sell it as a kit. My personal opinion. As I mentioned, there is still another hose that we have to down there that we want to replace, or I want to replace. I think some of the hoses I actually have to reuse. Hose clamps I have to reuse. So I'm trying to get all the bits and pieces together so we can slowly put at least the coolant lines back on, or the heater lines I should say. So apparently there's a trick to those hose clamps to make them spring tight, and yeah, here goes nothing. Yeah, I don't know if you saw it, but I managed to do it. Pushing it together with a needle nose plier, and then just putting a little lever in there in form of a small screwdriver, and we have it in place. All right, so now I'm going to do that one, and then lastly that one. I do like the billet aluminum. Slides a little easier. The fresh rubber hose is pretty thick compared to the old one. and everything is in place where it should be. So here's a new one, Doorman product. Quality 5-star. 626598. Comes pre-assembled. Other than the billet aluminum heater core inlet that I bought from Z1 Motorsports, all those hoses are from Rock Auto. If I remember, I put all the links down below. This Doorman product here comes pre-assembled, so there's a new piece of hose here, a new hose clamp with a holder on it that you just have to wiggle off. New clamps that hold it against the firewall, new hose clamp here, new very supple hose, and another hose clamp on this end. So this should be piece of cake. Piece of cake. In this orientation, this plastic thing that holds the hose clamp open is completely interfering with the air conditioning line that runs above it, and it looks like they put a little bit of some super glue between the clamp and the rubber material so it kind of stays in place and doesn't fall off. But after I broke that loose, just stuck a screwdriver in between the hose and the clamp and wiggled it a little bit, we can now turn, I think we can turn the hose clamp on the hose 90 degrees to the side, and that's all we needed to accomplish. So there it goes. Somehow. So I'm assuming that those parts are built on a jig. So they put them all together, held in place somehow, and then those aluminum lines get soldered or something, and then they just assume that every vehicle is exactly the same and all the pieces fit together the same. My heater core might just be a little further over that way, and now it doesn't. We can maybe put the hose. You know what? This time I'm gonna put some lubricant on there. This is a little on the tight side. There you go. A little spritz. The hose clamp is already in all the way open position, and it still is too tight to go over the little hose barb here. So I don't know. Oh, here we go. We got it. And the bolts in the firewall surprisingly fit. Okay. All right, last piece of this puzzle. So one last down here, a little bit WD-40. It's probably not necessary. slip the hose on. Make sure it's all nicely relaxed, not in the way. Like that. And then there's again this plastic ring thing that I have to pull off. There. And hose clamp is in place. Here was already one on here. And so now we have at least all the stuff back here on the wall done. Now we're gonna tighten up those two nuts and call it a day. There's a metal spacer in it, so you can tighten it down all the way. Rubber bushing, and then a metal insert. Okay, that's tight. And tight. So now there's one last connection. This is the overflow or hose to the overflow. You can buy that as well. I decided not to. We're just gonna reuse the old one until it gives us issues. And a little bit of some spray. Okay. Yeah. All right. Coolant lines mostly back in place. So forgive me for the poor quality. And yeah, just showing how it's much easier if you do this all together. You know, intake manifold off so you can get to stuff. And now I'm still waiting for my replacement thermostat, which, where does that sit? Let's see. Big old hoses. Where does that go? I think it's under there. Oh, that's gonna be a pain in the neck to get to. Why do they make everything so hard to get to? Is that the... Oh my goodness. We might have to take the air box out of the way. Wonder when that's gonna show up. I ordered it a couple days ago. No, where is the thermostat on this thing? Thermostat housing. Not here anywhere. It's the lower radiator hose that goes into the thermostat, isn't it? That's over there, and that's right underneath all of this stuff here. All right, I think this is a good point for me to end and pick up when we have the rest of the parts. What do you guys think? Yep. All right. Thanks for watching.